Familia, I stand before you here today not just as a candidate for Vice President Internal, but as someone who's experienced firsthand the impact of this organization, the way it transforms students into leaders, friends into family, and challenges into opportunities. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Abigail Bravo, and I'm a sophomore mechanical engineering student with a minor in business administration. I have really big dreams to obtain my master's in aerospace engineering and also open up my own engineering firm one day. This past year, I've had the privilege of serving as your SHPE-UH secretary. But my journey with SHPE started long before that title. It started the very first moment I stepped into my first general meeting and felt the energy of a room full of people who never let obstacles define them, who looked like me and shared my struggles. SHPE has taught me to always tackle obstacles head on and find solutions, not excuses. Before SHPE, I didn't even know how to write a resume. In fact, when I applied to colleges, I submitted a bullet point list. So here, I attended workshops. I didn't know how to handle myself in professional settings, so I went to networking socials. Lastly, I didn't even own professional attire, so I borrowed my mom's blazer. So, with my freshly printed resumes, a little bit more self-confidence, and my mom's blazer, I walked into the 2023 SHPE National Convention and landed my very first internship as a freshman. Since then, I was one of 5 people in the US to earn SHPE National's most prestigious scholarship. Now, as a sophomore, I have at least 2 internship offers for this upcoming summer. That is the power of SHPE, and that is exactly why I am running to be your Vice President Internal. I want members and anybody outside of SHPE to feel that same sort of growth and transformation I have felt and still feel today. So, as Vice President Internal, I plan to start leadership workshops, but not just any other leadership workshop. I want to bring past eBoard for a Q&A panel. I also want to curate a sort of support system for chairs, maybe create a feedback system, or put past goals into the drive so they have something to rely on. I also want to use my technical skills I've gained as secretary to lead and spearhead SHPE-UH into a new era, my 4-phase SHPE-UH app initiative. On top of that, I want to use my social and outgoing personality to make this role more known. I don't want people to fall into that stereotype that the internal team is internal and that's it. There's a quote that I live by, said by a world-renowned actress, a global activist, and a mother, Angelina Jolie. She says, "Nothing at all would mean anything if I didn't live a life of use to others." That's exactly why I'm here. That's exactly why I'm talking to all of you guys. So, when you think of Vice President Internal, I really hope that you not only think about my ideas, but think about my passion to help members inside of SHPE to help members outside of SHPE. Thank you so much.
Great speech, Abby. Being BPI, you'll have to not only have to maintain, but also strengthen SHPE's connections with other student organizations such as SWE, NSBE, ASME, and so on. What is your plan to maintain these connections so that SHPE still has that exposure on campus?
Could you repeat the last part of your question, please?
Yeah. So again, you'll not only have to maintain, but also strengthen SHPE's connections with other student organizations such as SWE, NSBE, ASME, and so on. So what is your plan to maintain these connections so that SHPE still has that exposure on campus?
Okay, good question. So I think a common way to answer this is to send an email, send a quick newsletter, text somebody. But I think it's important to be able to know people personally first. Maybe just ask them out like on a homework date, or maybe just let them know that you're interested in doing this. Share your passions and they can share yours with you as well. So I think once you know people or officers on a personal level, it'll be way easier to connect with them inside and outside of these collaborations.
Abby, really great seeing you running for VPI. So as a VPI, you're the president's right hand. It's been like that for many years. So can you describe a time when you had to step into a leadership role unexpectedly, and how did you handle it?
To reiterate, it's like step into a leadership role that I didn't expect to step into?
Yeah.
Okay, again, I think a common way to answer this is mention a school project, mention something academic, but I say that a time when I stepped into a leadership role, even when I didn't want to or didn't expect to, was probably a couple months ago when my little sister told me that she was set on being a biomedical engineer. My little sister is 12 years old, but she already has the mind of somebody that's set on their future. And I had to step into the role of being that college counselor. I'm a first generation student. My parents don't know anything about college. They don't really know what I do. They just send me off to school and say good luck. But with my little sister, I knew that this is something I had to do. I didn't really have that sort of guidance when I was younger, but I knew I had to be this for my little sister. So because of that, I signed her up for a STEM program that involved SHPE National and was sponsored by Bechtel.
Abby, I was also a VPI, so my question would be, how would you handle when UH Center of Student Involvement does not agree with an event or current activities?
Does not agree
Yeah.
with one of our events?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very good question, thought-provoking for sure. I think first is first, it's divided into steps. You can start with step 0, just figuring out what is the reason, communicating with them. Again, not just via email or some sort of text base, but maybe going in person and reaching out to them, letting them know what the problem even is. Because maybe without you knowing or without you wanting it to be, it could be something that we're doing wrong. Maybe there's a document that we didn't fill out. Maybe there's a noise level that we weren't supposed to meet, but we did and surpassed. So I think that's the first step, or step 0, figuring out who's really to blame and then working from there.
Thank you.
Hi, Abby. As the VPI, you're almost seen as the internal president as well, right? So in case something happens with presidents, situations occur, you're the one that people would look at. So how would you go about handling internal conflicts with an e-board?
Within e-board? Okay, I think that's a very good question, and I'll answer it similarly to what I just answered. First, you really have to figure out what even is the issue. You have to figure out and sometimes admit that maybe you are the issue. Maybe you have to take a step back and analyze, but don't do it alone. For sure, reach out to the e-board or the e-board as a whole and tell them, maybe ask them what you did wrong. Or maybe if you end up finding out that you weren't in the wrong, you really need to communicate with them on a professional level and leave the friendship out of it. I think it's important to know that we're all friends, we're all here for a purpose, we all have the same aspirations, but we do need to keep it professional. And that way it doesn't affect your leadership role, it doesn't affect your friendship outside of SHPE, and it doesn't affect members as a whole. Thank you.